What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's going on with the markets thus far and some very important levels to be watching for. What's happening with some big news involving Mercedes and Tesla, and what the news is saying about the markets for tomorrow. But before I break anything down all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 6 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks plus 6 months of level 2 data. Putting in $25,000 or more guarantees you 70 free stocks plus 12 months of level 2 data. This offer ends in just about 2 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the markets. Looking at Tesla, the current technicals look more bullish, especially when I zoom into the charts a bit more. But I just want to note that although Tesla could push a little bit higher, there could be a rejection coming very soon, even for the market. So you just want to be very careful at the levels we're about to be approaching. So I'll be breaking these down over the next couple of minutes. Let's first talk about something else, though. So I just want to mention that for tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 30 minutes after market open, we have the NAHB Housing Market Index report coming out for December. This is expected to be between 36 and 32, basically very close to what the previous report was at 34. We'll be watching to see how this affects us. Then at 11:30 a.m., we have the 3-month bill auction, the 6-month bill auction also coming out. This is going to be very important for treasuries and how the market views these auctions. So watch for some volatility during those times, and everything else is pretty much just minor when it comes to data and things like that. So we'll be watching to see how this goes. Most of the data for the week is quite minor, except for the end of the week on Thursday and Friday. We have some big GDP numbers coming out, not to mention PCE data and more data from Michigan. So Thursday and Friday are bigger data days, and everything else is kind of minor, at least for the most part. When it comes to the Fear and Greed Index, most of these indicators are actually at these extremes. Market volatility is still neutral as the VIX is not really making much of a move, but puts and call options are at extreme greed right now, approaching this low right over here, which tends to signal that the market could turn at least to some extent. We're also seeing the same thing at these extremes on all these different indicators as the fear and greed index is getting closer to extreme greed. When it comes to Tesla, I just want to mention that Tesla has unveiled a new bird's eye view of a 3D construction parking assist model, which is very, very cool. And this will be very helpful for people that have trouble driving, people who have trouble seeing. And this will be very, very easy to like navigate in these very tight spaces. So this is just one example of that. So that makes parking much more easy, much more, viable for a lot more people out there. And this would be very, very cool as time goes on. I would love to see if this ends up being like involved in the different models to see if this is like part of an update. But this is once again very, very cool. They're saying that this could be happening in the holiday update, which could be happening in quite some time. So it's great news for Tesla and very exciting stuff. Mercedes dealer also has handed out the Tesla Autopilot recall article to customers. So this is some news that came out as well. I mean, we're just continuing to see this as the NHTSA is continuing to make more and more claims about Tesla. But Tesla, I just want to remember and recall that when you see news like this about how there's a recall, there's this and that, just remember, Tesla could deploy a software update to fix these issues. So this is not your typical recall that leads to massive downside for stocks and things like that. That is not what's going on. And these articles tend to be very misleading. I just wanted to call this out because it's saying that there was the Tesla autopilot recall, and it wasn't actually your typical recall. It was just an autopilot update through the software. That's all it really needed to be fixed. So with that being said, there's this news coming out leading to more people just becoming concerned. I'm not too concerned, guys. I'm very confident in Tesla's future. Don't let this get the best of you. Tesla's still holding up quite decently. Although this was a very, very big software update for over 2 million Tesla vehicles, the share price is still doing well. I'm sure Tesla has once again come to its attention to just fix this as fast as possible for safety checks and controls on the autopilot and other factors like that. That's good news. Tesla's continuing to improve and they're going to continue as time goes on. There's nothing stopping them, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to volume, 136 million was the volume, well above average. Tesla's getting a lot of buyers again. We're seeing some good volume. We're starting to see shorts getting squeezed as the price pairs, or I'm sorry, the price versus short volume is actually starting to go up, which is a decent sign. And then on top of this, with all the shorting going on in Tesla, Tesla is still holding up decently. Guggenheim has come out and they're saying you should sell your Tesla shares. They're saying Tesla has more downside coming, very similar to Bernstein saying that Tesla is going to likely drop 38%. Well, like I said before, we haven't even dropped 10%, so let's not talk about 38% or any like crazy numbers like that. Let's just be patient and wait and see how it goes. Now, the price price ratio is still going up as Tesla's gaining some strength internally, which is another decent sign. It also tends to be more volatility, more green on Mondays. We're green about 53% of the time. But then we tend to be a little bit weaker towards the later days of the week historically. Watch for volatility at 11 o'clock a.m. Also at around noon, there's some volatility during that period. And then at 2 o'clock p.m., it tends to be the most volatile hour for Tesla. We tend to be more green during that hour than any other hour historically. So make sure you watch this thing around that time. Now let's break down what's happening with the chart. So I just wanted to mention to everyone that when we zoom out of Tesla, okay, we have this orange trend line right here. Just look at the orange line, guys. I know this is kind of complicated, but just look at the orange line. When we break this, we tend to reject off of this. So we might see a big test of this very soon. Now, when I zoom into the chart, let me just show you something very important. The orange trend line is our key resistance. Right now, Tesla's looking bullish. We have a bullish wedge that's developing on the chart. We're holding up very nicely. If I actually switch over to Weeble just to show you some more indicators, the 4 hour time frame is looking quite good for Tesla. We're still holding up nicely. Bullish wedge developing. We're still above our EMAs. We're actually not too overbought on the 4 hour time frame. On the daily time frame, I just want to mention that Tesla still looks a little bullish as we managed to close above the 200 EMA. So I could see it push a little bit higher. I could still see it. There's no sign of Tesla breaking down unless we end up losing 250. Then I could just shift my view. But I just wanted to say Tesla looks like it could push a little bit higher. It does not look like it's done just yet. Also, don't forget, guys, that so far on the different time frames, like if we switch over to, let me just pull up the weekly right here. On the weekly time frame, we also look bullish. So, you know, it looks like it has more upside coming. Does not look like Tesla's done just yet. But I just want to note that we're going to be testing this orange trend line very soon. The orange line, which is where we get these rejections. The question I have is if we're going to break out, first, you want to see Tesla break 255. If we do so, I could easily see it reach 258 and 260. If we do reach 260, are we going to break the orange trend line or are we going to get a big rejection off it like we have historically? That's my only concern about Tesla. If it breaks this, I mean, are we going to like get a temporary break to the upside like this and just like come back down? For instance, that's going to be another example of a failed breakout. Or do we, or do we see Tesla break like this, continue to hold above the orange trend line, then start breaking? That's like the really bullish case. So those are like the three main possibilities. Either we kind of like pop a bit more and reject, we get a false breakout and then reject, or we just continue to hold and we turn bullish. Those are the three main possibilities. What do I think is more likely to happen? And that's why I wanted to just note this. So, in my opinion, guys, I think that Tesla's going to get hit with some tight resistance up here. It will depend on the news, but I could see it getting very close to 260 or so. But I am concerned that Tesla might actually reject. I think there's a good chance that we might see this one play out, this red trend line play out. And the reason for that has to do more with the overall market and the historical trend on Tesla because of the fact that even though it could break out more, I think that the market as a whole might actually kind of like pull back a little bit. I think that this might actually kind of anchor Tesla down just a little, and this might cause it to retrace back down to the yellow trend line. So I do favor this possibility where Tesla kind of like breaks out, but just to be safe, watch the orange trend line, see if Tesla could break and hold above this 260 zone. If we manage to close above and just keep holding, then we could turn even more bullish. But I don't favor that. I think that we're more likely to see this thing attempts to break out, could just temporarily get above this and just come down and kind of chop a bit. And then we might get a rejection. We might see Tesla retrace back down to the yellow trend lines. And we'll see if it holds from there. I think the whole market's going to follow this trend. I think that this is going to have a big effect on Tesla. So could the market pump more? Yes, I think the market could pump more. On SPY, there are two possibilities. Okay. I think we're going to make an attempt to push up higher. Let me show you what this may look like. Watch 472 very, very carefully. If we break this, we're going to be watching 474. And if we manage to break that, we could turn bullish. But if we reject off 472, we could actually come back down and start to downtrend and retrace back down towards like 467. So what do I think is more likely for SPY? I think SPY may attempts to break out, kind of push a little higher. We could establish a lower high here. So where this orange trend line is, this orange possibility I drew out, I find this to be very probable. I think there's going to be downside coming. But I think that we might pop first as they're going to try to grab some liquidity. Watch and see, does SPY establish a break of this high or do we make a lower high? I'm thinking that we might push a little higher. We might establish a lower high relative to this high and then come back down and start to downtrend a little bit. Part of why I'm saying that is because of the fact that SPY has been green 7 weeks in a row. And we have this big wick that's forming at 473, which is where we start to see some liquidity already being grabbed. And if you look at the daily and the 4 hour, we're actually losing some momentum. The 4 hour has turned a bit more bearish on the MACD. This is the first time this happened in a very long time, in weeks and weeks and weeks. And then on the daily time frame, we're starting to lose a little bit of momentum. We have two red looking candlesticks that have developed, which tells me that even though there's this gap here, maybe we've kind of like pushed to fill the gap and then we come back down, or we just retrace in a very healthy fashion. Don't forget the 20 EMA on the 4 hour time frame is going to be in the 468s, which could suggest even more downside. So what do I think is going to happen, guys? There are two possibilities. I will turn bullish if SPY breaks 474. I will be bearish if we get a big rejection off like around 472 or so, and then we just continue to downtrend. What do I think is more likely? Once again, just to be clear, the orange line I have drawn out is more probable in my opinion. A little pop, another grab of this liquidity at 472, a lower high can be established, and a rejection. This could even resemble kind of like a cup and handle for a little bit of downside, an inverse cup and handle, excuse me, guys. And I think that that's very, very likely looking at the current trend. All right. So then for the QQQ, I see something similar, but I just want to note that the QQQ is not really showing signs of breaking down yet. So if you look at the charts for the last few weeks, we have this yellow line. Look at this yellow line right here that's holding the QQQ up. You can draw this out. So in my opinion, it hasn't actually broken down yet officially. So there's no sign of the QQQ breaking down yet, but I suspect that it might push higher towards 406 to 408, a little bit higher to grab liquidity. You can see we have this resistance right here. And I think it's going to break out a little bit higher. Tesla might push higher as well. The market might push a little higher and then we might get a rejection. I think we're eventually going to break the yellow trend line and come back down later on. So a little more upside is likely coming to the QQQ than a rejection as time goes on, and a retracement back down to 404 to 402. All right, I'm not saying we're going to crash immediately. I'm saying the QQQ could push up to 406 to 408 and then retrace after that. On Nvidia, I think the same thing is going to happen. I think Nvidia is going to play a big role in causing this. We have a flag that's forming. We could break out and then try to retest 495 to 498. We could push a little bit higher, try to grab some liquidity up here, and then make our way back down. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being the case. And we could see Nvidia just start to retrace in a very healthy fashion back down towards this imbalances. I want to call out to this imbalance down here, which is going to be a key level at 483. Wouldn't be surprised if Nvidia kind of like pushes a little higher first before we see this turn, maybe as soon as tomorrow, if not a little bit later into the week. And it could bounce later on as well. I'm just not going to focus on that just yet. Apple has a downwards channel developing. Do we break out on Apple first to grab liquidity before we break down? Or do we just continue to respect this channel like this? In my opinion, it's going to be one of those two. We might push on Apple just a little bit more, hit 198 or so. But I think that we got a clean rejection off this 200 area. And I think that we might see this negatively affect the share price. If you look at Apple on the 4 hour time frame, it's starting to turn a little bit bearish, starting to show some weakness. I think that Apple will eventually make its way back down. So it might pop a little bit and come back down to 195 or even below that. I favor 195 coming and maybe even a level below that. So a little pop and drop is probable. We'll be watching that as time goes on. And that's pretty much it for my main 5 on trading view. Now I'm just going to go over a couple more just very, very quickly. As a reminder, guys, I just want to mention that let's actually go back to SoFi. SoFi is turning bearish on the 4 hour time frame. It could get another liquidity grab at 10 and then reject back down to 8.92 or reject from here, forming kind of like an inverse cup and handle. I think that it's going to make its way back down into the eights. I think there's going to be a little pullback coming to SoFi. For the IWM, like I said earlier, could push back up to 198 and reject, or kind of reject from here. But I see this thing retracing to fill this gap back down towards 194. Now, that doesn't mean it has to happen immediately. Could push one more time, form a double top, if not like 198 to 200 could be tested again, and then we could come back down to 194 to fill our gap. I find that very likely on the Russell 2000. I'm still very bullish overall for the year of 2024 for the Russell. Don't forget that, guys. But just to be safe, make sure you watch the levels. For Microsoft, I'm going to be looking for rejection off the 50 EMA. If we reject off here, we could actually come back down towards 366. If we break the 50, we could actually push for 375 and then reject. So do we push a little higher on Microsoft and then reject, or do we just reject from here? As of right now, it looks like it's trying to reject from here off the 50 EMA. So I do favor it coming back down to 366. But just to be safe, make sure you watch this yellow line, the yellow EMA right here, to see if we reject or not. My guts tells me it's going to reject soon. If AMD breaks 142, I would turn bullish. If it fails to do so, watch for a retest of 137, if not even below that. My guts tells me that AMD is going to retrace a little bit. I think that just like Nvidia, it could push one more time, but we need to see it close above 142 to turn bullish. If it fails to do so, we kind of have like a slanted head and shoulders. It could actually retrace towards 135. So look for a little pop and drop or a drop from here. If we close above 142, I could turn bullish, but as of right now, it failed to do so. So watch it very carefully. The VIX and the SQQQ are still very indecisive. Although we have a bullish crossover on the PPO, the VIX is not giving us any signs yet, nor is the SQQQ. But the dollar is giving us a signal that's trying to push up back again, and we could see a 103.18 test and eventually 103.5. So there is potential for upside. Watch it very carefully. On Coinbase, we're looking a bit more bearish. Look for a little pop back test of 150, then a little bit of a drop at this breakout area at 142. I think that Coinbase is going to come back down to 142. I say this based off the fact that we have this bearish divergence, not to mention the fact that it's turning right now and we could end up losing our 20 EMA. It's looking like it's showing some weakness after this liquidity grab, and ultimately I could see it actually retrace. So look for a little pop and drop, 150 to be retested before a rejection. For Google, I want to call out, I think that this works technically. Google is not looking the best to me because I want to see it break and hold 135 to turn bullish. If it fails to hold and close above 135, we could reject off the 200 EMA, which aligns with the daily 50 EMA. If we reject off that, we could see this basically come back down and start to retrace back down to 131. So watch and see if we reject or not. My guts tells me that's going to be the case. I'm not sure what Amazon is actually going to do for now in a way because so far it's still holding up and there's no sign of Amazon breaking out or breaking down just yet. The technicals still look a bit more bullish on Amazon, so it looks like it might outperform the market. So I don't think it's going to sell off like the market immediately. I think that Amazon can push a little higher, just a little bit more. I don't think it's done just yet. Watch and see if we close above 150. If we do so, we can turn bullish. If we fail to do so, we could try to turn. There's no sign of it turning yet. It still looks bullish to me. So we'll just have to wait and see if Amazon gets that turn. On Meta, not looking, it looks kind of like it's in the middle right now. It's very choppy, very sideways. It's been stuck between 330 and 340 for quite some time. My guts tells me that there's liquidity being grabbed right here at this wick. Could push towards 337, then reject and make its way down to 330. In my opinion, it's just range bound. There's not much going on with the meta, so we'll just have to wait and see. With that being said, guys, I think Tesla could push more. I think we could get very close to 260. But be very careful as the market's showing some signs of turning, which could slow Tesla down. I want to warn you about that. I'm not saying it's going to crash immediately. I'm not saying I'm a big bear. I'm just saying that there could be a very, very healthy, small little retracement coming later. I think the most likely possibility is Tesla pushes higher. It's going to push higher, get close to that 260 area, but it could turn depending on how it reacts to its resistance. Okay, same thing with SPY and the other tickers. Be very careful. The market could dictate Tesla, so watch your levels carefully and do what you have to do. That's what I have for this video, guys. Have a great day. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy some football, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Thanks again, and peace out.